Mayor Taylor, we're recording now.
Thank you. Good evening, staff, members of council, and to anyone else who may be watching the recorded version. We'll call our council meeting of November 1st to order at exactly 6 o'clock. Announcements. I've got a couple of announcements. First of all, the 2021 Peterborough Chamber of Commerce had their Business Excellence Awards last week, and we had two recipients from Otonabee-South Monaghan, so I thought we needed to do a shout out for them. Trainer Farms won Farm Family of the Year Award, and Jason McIntosh Auctions won an award for micro business fewer than 5 employees. Both, I think, are very familiar to all members of council and staff and very deserving of the award. And we will be sending them a congratulatory note on behalf of council and the township. So that's the first announcement. Thank you. And the second, and if I had the technical ability to shoot off fireworks and streamers and so forth on the screen, I'd be doing it, because I'm really pleased to inform everyone that our municipal office is now open to the public. We're wide open. Full vaccination requirements are in effect, of course, and masking and so forth. But if someone comes to the door, they can now walk in. So it's been a long time coming. The public have been patient, and we appreciate that. And thank you to staff for everything you've done to allow this to happen. Number 3, disclosures of pecuniary interest. Are there any disclosures from any of the matters before us tonight? Seeing none, we have the agenda before us. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? And if not, could I get a motion, please, that we adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting? Sorry, I'm seeing Heather's. Heather, go ahead.
Sorry, Mayor Taylor, there is that one addition to item number 12, which is for the staff report for the Christmas closure.
Correct, but it's on the posted agenda now. So do you still want a motion for an amended agenda?
Yes, because it wasn't put on until later on in the day, until about.
Okay. The council will have noticed that the staff, the office closure is added to the agenda. So I need a motion, please, to approve the amended agenda tonight. I'm seeing Councillor Howie and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, the amended agenda is approved. We've got 2 sets of minutes, August 4th and October 4th and October 18th. Are there any questions or clarifications needed on those sets of minutes? And if council have reviewed them and they look acceptable, I'd like a motion, please, that we adopt those minutes. I'm seeing Councillor Powers and Councillor Allen. All in favor? That's carried. They are approved. Thank you. Okay, moving down now to 12.1, which is the insurance renewal for a year. Which staff member is going to take the lead in this
one? I believe that, so Heather can start, and the others, we may chip in, but Heather can go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor and members of council. Before you is a report on our insurance renewal from November the 21st to November the 22nd. As the report recommendation states that we would like council to approve the renewal of the municipal insurance coverage through VFL in the amount of $411,198.28, including applicable taxes, for the period of November 1st, 2021 to November 1st, 2022. The report actually does a full breakdown of all the insurance coverages we have, and highlighted in blue are why the increases have occurred. So the difference between last year's and this year's renewal is $63,956. I don't know if council has any questions with respect to the report itself. I'm sure we'd be more than happy to answer them if you do.
You can. Thank you. Questions? Deputy Mayor Clark, go ahead, Bonnie.
Thank you. Through the mayor. It seems like a huge hike when you look at 20%, and it is. However, when you look at the overall province, we are getting off relatively easy compared to other municipalities. And I wondered possibly if the CAO, Greg, would speak to that, just to give it our perspective where we sit in the pool here. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, through to the Deputy Mayor, thank you. I was going to raise that point, so that's why at the beginning I had mentioned that there may be a couple of us that were going to speak to this. So at 19.39%, that's one of the lower increases that I've seen. A lot of the liability, so this is general liability coverage for municipalities, is typically increasing anywhere between 40 and 100%, depending on the record of the municipality and their performance on risk management. So we've been, from a risk management perspective, we've had a couple of incidents, but we try to manage that in our workplace as an ongoing basis, and with our staff and our supervisors. And so it is it sort of is what it is. The only major general liability insurer in the world, which is Lloyd's of London, is the one that sort of takes the biggest piece of our pie here. And that, with all of the they insure just about every sort of public entity in the world. And so if you look at what's happening in the US with, large storms and hurricanes and those sort of types of things, Lloyd's has really, it's affected their business. And so consequently, the other thing that's occurred is that our qualification for us to be insured every year went from a sort of a week-long process where we provided information to the insurers. It's now like a 3 or 4 month information and data exchange we have with our broker. And the amount of disclosure that we have to do and the amount of data that we have to provide takes us a considerable amount of time, because some of the stuff we don't necessarily readily have. And so they've asked us for information on all of our assets and the performance of our assets. They've asked us specifically around like very, very detailed information before some of these sub-insurers will make a decision to offer us coverage. So that's the second point I wanted to make to council is our staff have worked really diligently through Heather and through Jocelyn, right down through Public Works and through the arena and fire and those particular folks to get that data back in so that the coverage can be provided that's to us. This is why we're up against the renewal date today, because we just got this renewal document recently, but it's taken us months to get them the information to allow us the renewal to be presented to council.
Mayor Taylor, if I may add too, that we're not, the recommendation is not requesting any changes to the coverage or any of the deductibles as well. So it's just as what we had before.
Okay, thank you. I think I saw Councillor Powers' hand up. Nick, did you have a question?
I did. Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Good evening, everyone. Certainly, I have been a participant in my work life on filling out some of these forms, and I would agree with Greg and Jocelyn and Heather. These are monumentous, to say the least, particularly over the last couple of years. They've gone, in some cases were ones that I've been involved in, where they've gone from a single page to 30 or 40 pages long for the same renewal. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised that it's taken that long to gather that information. It's quite an undertaking. So thanks to staff for that. Just a question, and by the way, I'm not surprised at the increase. We're seeing that certainly across all municipalities. And Greg's right, this is fairly low. Just a question for Greg and Heather and Jocelyn as well. I don't see in here, and I think we've talked about this before, around cyber insurance coverage. And just normally that's a separate line and not necessarily covered under the general. So I just wanted to see if that's something we are looking at doing, or if that's covered in some way through BFL that I'm just not seeing on our report. Thanks.
I'll let Heather deal with it.
To Councillor Powers, we actually have our cyber coverage through a different agency.
Okay. And so that renewal then, Heather, would it come at a later time?
Yes, it would.
Okay. All right.
Any,
Okay.
any other questions from members of council? It's, it's other than just complain, I don't know what else can be done, but it's certainly a recurring theme every year. It's double-digit increases and somehow we've been convinced that we have nothing to complain about if the increase is less than 25% or some ridiculous number. So I just don't know where this ends, but it has to, because it's getting, if it's not already, out of control. But we do need the insurance, and we do have to either renew this, so we don't have time to go out to market for a new one. So the recommendation is that we approve the renewal in the amount of $411,198. I saw Deputy Mayor Clark. Bonnie, are you going to make the motion, or do you have a comment?
I will make the motion with, I guess, a seconder, and then just make one comment, and maybe through the mayor, it may be more appropriate for you to make the comment, Joe, but AMO is certainly on top of this and lobbying. And as we said before, this is provincial, so all the organizations representing municipalities are trying to do their best to address this.
It's a battle we just don't seem to be making any ground on. But first, let's get the motion. Deputy Mayor Clark has made the motion that we approve the coverage. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Allen. Okay, any comments on the motion? And Deputy Mayor Clark has stated it. I know AMO is working on this. They do every year. There's a number of factors that play into this, not the least of which is joint and several. So we continue to wage the battle, but we're not winning the war, that's for sure. Anyway, all in favor of the motion? Carried. Thank you. Heather, I assume that this is going to stay with you on 12.2, the Christmas office closure?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So your next report is the Christmas office closure for 2021. And council in the past has been very supportive of staff taking the time off between the Christmas and New Year's. So this year we're looking at having the time, so the Christmas holidays would be commencing December the 23rd at 4:30 p.m. until January 3rd and returning back to the office on January 4th. Staff would have to use 3 days of their bank time, flex time, or vacation time in order to make up these hours. I don't know if you have any other questions, but we're just asking for the same thing as we had in the past.
So we just get the office opened and now you want to close it again.
Just for Christmas.
All right, I saw Councillor Powers with his hand up. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I fully support this. No issues at all. I'm just curious, is this something that can we not as council just unilaterally approve ongoing? Is there a reason why we have to do it every year? And just make it as per policy it's the week of, the week between Christmas and New Year's, the office is closed. And we deal with exceptions to that rule rather than having to come to council every year. Not that it really is a huge issue. I'm just curious to ease the process and just say, yes, every year it's going to be closed.
But maybe the dates, but I'll turn it over to Heather. What's your answer to that?
You can make that recommendation if they choose to, but in the past, most of the councils previously have liked it to come back to council every year. Basically that it was, it was a request and not something that was just given.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, and through the mayor, I certainly like it coming to council if people are looking at minutes or whatever. It's just reinforcement. I have no objection to being supportive each and every year, but I do like it on the agenda just so the general public is aware.
Fair enough. Well, I guess, council can entertain any motion that's put forward with that regard. But for now, the recommendation is just to approve the closing of the office during the dates that are mentioned in this report. So I'd like to deal with this particular report first. And if at this meeting or a subsequent meeting, if any member of council wanted to bring forth another motion for council to consider, well, that certainly can be done. but dealing with the task at hand. Go ahead. Go ahead, Nick.
I'll make the motion that we approve the closures for the dates defined within the appropriate report.
And I saw Councillor Howie with his hand up. Ken, you second that?
Yeah, I second that motion.
Okay, call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving down now to planning. And this is I think this is a good consistent theme that we just continue to have planning reports at our council meetings, Ken, and I see that as nothing but positive. There's lots of activity and how happening, and personally, I'm glad to see it. So I'll turn it over to you for consent application B74.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Yeah, severances are a hot item in the township right now. The purpose of this application is to create a vacant residential lot on the lands addressed 3804 Lakeside Road. The proposed severed lot is approximately 0.4 hectares in size, with approximately 38 meters of frontage along Lakeside Road. The proposed retained lands have a lot area of approximately 40 hectares, approximately 440 meters of frontage on Lakeside Road. The proposed severed lands are currently vacant. The proposed retained lands currently have a single detached dwelling, barn, accessory structures, and agricultural uses existing. Proposed severed parcel is zoned rural, however, it does not meet the minimum lot area and minimum lot frontage requirements of the rural zone, and therefore rezoning to the rural residential zone will be required as a condition of consent. The proposed retained lot is zoned rural and environmental protection. Although the retained parcel meets the minimum lot frontage and lot area provisions, a rezoning prohibiting the use of housing livestock on the retained lands would be required as a condition of consent. And this is stemming from the barn that is existing on the retained parcel, proposed retained parcel. As I believe council would have seen on the MDS mapping I attached to the report, the MDS calculation from the barn slightly overlays on top of the proposed severed parcel. So we can address this through a rezoning as per the MDS guidelines. If there are any questions on that, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ken. Questions from members of council? I see Councillor Powers. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Thanks, Ken. Just a question actually on the MDS piece, because it certainly is listed that, prohibiting the use of livestock in the existing barn would be a requirement, but I don't see it listed as one of the conditions that's identified in the consent application that we have. Now, is that because it'll come as part of the zoning part later on?
Yes.
Versus the consent application? So we wouldn't put it under a consent application. We would put it under when it comes to rezoning.
Yes, that is correct. Councillor Powers, the condition that states retain lands to be rezoned to the satisfaction of the township, that wording would allow us to incorporate that rezoning to the township satisfaction. So they would have the rezoning.
So we don't have to be specific here. When we can just say the satisfaction is encompassing everything that's kind of contained within this report. Is that what you're getting at? Versus
yes,
literally listing that you cannot have livestock in this barn as a condition of consent.
Yes, that is correct. That's when the rezoning application comes in, we would ensure that livestock is prohibited in that barn. And I would do a site visit to ensure that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Ken, I just have one, and that is, and it's kind of taking Councillor Powers' question one step further. Does the applicant understand that when this restriction is put on the barn with regards to housing a livestock, that it stays with that barn, it regardless of whether his property is sold or not? It's really a big decision on neutering or sterilizing a livestock facility. So does the applicant fully understand that?
I believe the applicant does. There's a professional planner working as the applicant's agent, who I'm sure has conveyed this information, but I would, before the rezoning application comes in, I will need to have a pre-consultation with the applicant, and I would make sure they understand that.
Okay, all right.
Pre-consultation is required.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Clark, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, through the mayor. So just to you, Ken, certainly if a new barn It's just sterilizing that existing barn. So if a new barn could be put up and the minimum distance separation able to achieve that, is there a possibility of a new barn being put up farther away in the future?
I think the best way to address this would be prohibiting housing livestock on the parcel completely, regardless of where a barn exists. I think we could do this in a way that would ensure that an MDS calculation would not interfere with the new residential parcel. So we can kind of make it a blanket provision over the entire retained parcel, rather than just that barn.
Right, go ahead, Bonnie.
I have a bit of an issue with that, because if a new barn can meet the distance separation from, the proposed residence, and with X number of animals, if they can meet that, then I don't have a problem with a barn being put farther away with the, less than X number of animals and meeting the MDS. Other than that, we are choking a possible farm in the future. It seems as if it's just a one-way street. So the residence counts and the farmer doesn't. So just food for thought. I know we're not dealing with that situation tonight, but if the separation could be reached, and I'm not saying it can on this property, I may be thinking of a larger property, but anyway, food for thought.
Yeah, we'll leave that with you, but I think Deputy Clark makes a good point. Is that there's in my view at least, there's no need to sterilize an entire farm parcel if it's not necessary. But certainly this particular livestock facility, it is necessary because it falls within that MDS arc. So provided, as we said earlier, the applicant understands that this restriction carries on in perpetuity, and he's willing to do that, then I'm not hearing any objection from members of council. So are members of council willing to make a decision with regards to consent application B-7421 at this time? Deputy Mayor Clark?
So moved.
Moved. Deputy Mayor, you're going to approve the application with the 4 conditions listed?
That's correct. It's written that the council approve, and there's the, as you say, the 4 bullet points there.
4 conditions,
Yes.
okay. Do I have a seconder to that motion? Councillor Powers. Any questions on it? Call the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Ken. Moving down now to 13.2, which is our township's response to the City of Peterborough's request to review their draft official plan. Greg, did you want to speak to this one?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, and I know that you may have some questions of this is a very rapidly created and presented report, just because of the time frame. So I have to give some credit to Kent Randall from EcoView Consulting, and as well Ken Scully in putting this together. So we also had a few conversations with some of our township neighbors and the county of Peterborough as well. So it's a relatively detailed report, and I'll just sort of, I know council had a chance to read it, but really there's a couple of sort of items in the précis here that we received notice of this draft official plan on October the 6th. And with a notice saying that it was going to go before, that they were going to have a public open house on the 21st of October, and then that they were going to be convening this evening.
Greg, just a second. Bonnie, you having trouble hearing, Greg?
Yes, I'm finding I'm really having to concentrate, Greg, and normally you come across very, very loud and clear. So I'm just wondering if anyone else is experiencing.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was just me. Just if it's somehow to turn up the volume, Greg.
Yep, no problem. I'll just, I maybe, it just may be the microphone here. So, but if that, is that any better? I'm not sure whether that's any better. So I know you're muted out, Mr. Mayor.
That's a little better there, Greg.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll hold up the microphone. So so we were given very short notice of this particular draft official plan. I guess it's been in the works for quite a number of months, but we didn't get the notice until the 6th of October. And consequently, they were having a public open house on the 21st of October, and comments needed to be in by today. So they were going to convene the regulatory public meeting with the city this evening. And so that was the purpose of the report. And we have, two of the items that we took some umbrage with. First of all, was the, as stipulated in the report, was this Cold Springs Special Study Area. And this particular area has been of discussion for 20 or 30 years. Is a part of the items that were negotiated during the annexation agreements between ourselves and the city of Peterborough, and as well Cavan Monaghan in the city of Peterborough. And so about changing the policies related to this Cold Springs area. The second major item that we had was the arbitrary detailing of municipal road corridors on the west boundary, then the north boundary of the city of Peterborough, and then the east boundary where it affects us as well as Bureau Dummer. And these would be corridors that were meant to be maintained, and they were not within the boundaries of the city of Peterborough. So they would be in our actual townships, where they would want to have these particular areas designated for particular, almost like a ring road to be able to go around the city. And there's development taking place in those areas. So it was a real cause to concern from us, because the Planning Act does not allow the city to put designations on any lands that are outside of the municipal boundaries. And so these were some of the items that we've, as I said, that we had some concern with. So we hastily put together this report. This report has already been sent to the city, and the request that it be put on this evening's agenda with the city. So we had to take that particular step in advance of us coming here to council tonight. But I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, if council members have any questions. We could try to address some of those questions rather than me trying to go into further detail.
Okay, yes, thank you, Greg. And certainly before we go to questions, I do want to thank staff, our planner and our planning consultant for scrambling together to get comments back into the city by the deadline. I mean, to review a draft official plan is no small undertaking. And they did not give us very much time to do it. And of course, it's not like our staff are sitting around looking for things to do. So Greg, I certainly want to thank you and everyone involved for looking at this in detail and putting our perspective to it and getting these comments ready. So with that, I'll turn it over to questions. I think Deputy Mayor had her hand up. Bonnie?
Yes, through the mayor, and thank you. And I echo that to staff. I found it very disrespectful for the city to have given these timeframes for all the municipalities that are certainly going to be impacted by this. So thank you to the staff. I just have one clarification. My understanding is that the parkway, which has always been debated fiercely in the city, pro and against, that is not showing up on the official plan. With staff having had a chance to look at this more closely, could through the mayor to the CAO, could you comment on the parkway? Because if it isn't in play, as you stated, these ring roads, and that's what they are going to have a huge impact on the flow in the city.
Mr. Mayor, through to the Deputy Mayor, there's some question about whether or not the designation still exists for the parkway. And so there's some clarity that's required, but these arbitrary decisions to look at or proposing to designate land outside of the municipal boundaries was very presumptuous indeed. And so, you know, that we have to represent our interests. So we wanted to make sure, and as I said, I know that there have been comments that have been sent from the county to the city. And I know that there have been reports and letters sent from Kevin Monaghan to the city, and as well from Selwyn to the city. And so I believe Duro was going to be working on one, but I'm not sure whether it's been sent in time for this evening's meeting. So, you know, there were some conversations happening between CAOs here and various mayors and elected officials who are trying to get at least something on the agenda based on what our concern was with the city by today.
Thank you. And I just see, I'm not sure, Mayor Taylor, if you see our planner has his hand up there in the screen.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ken, and then Councilor Powers.
I don't think I put my hand up. I think they're some.
You're just swatting a fly. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's right.
Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Yeah, I certainly, in reviewing this, Greg, certainly had similar concerns with you. You know, the Cold Springs piece is somewhat unique because it is technically within the jurisdiction of the city to designate certain lands in however they deem fit. But I think what's missing, and I think that's what you alluded to in your report that's being sent, is that the key piece that's missing is having that conversation with the municipalities that are abutting that particular land area and having conversations about how we can work together collaboratively. And it sounds like maybe that's what we're looking for in that particular piece. The road one, I think you're right in the sense that they are making assumptions based on our township lands that this will be designated as a future development for a ring road of some kind without actually even consulting with us. And in fact, it's not land that they have any jurisdiction to make a decision on. So I think you're right in making this position for. I'm just curious from council's perspective, what should we be sending? You know, you've already sent this, Greg, to city staff, which will ultimately hopefully end up on city council's table as part of their report. What should we be sending as a council in support of that, if that's something we're looking for? I think within the report, you're looking specifically to have these items within the official plan removed altogether. Is that what you're looking for, a removal? Okay, I see you're shaking your head, yes.
Mr. Mayor, yes, through the council powers, yes. Now, you know, I can elaborate further on the Cold Springs item. I think, you know, both of these particular items are pretty massive in their natures from a planning perspective. But the item related to Cold Springs really would have a very significant financial impact on the township. And the reason that it would is that under the current official plan, there's a secondary plan for that Cold Springs area. And so they're saying that they want to remove that particular secondary plan and replace it with new planning principles. Now that secondary plan was put in place as a result of annexation negotiations that have gone on between the city and the township, so ourselves and Kevin Monaghan, specifically for those lands. So there are legal agreements that pertain to the Cold Springs property about how they should be developed. And there is also the exchange of development, portions of development charges for those particular properties. So if they change the designation from primarily was going to be residential to employment lands, we would lose significantly on these previously negotiated and agreed to amounts during annexation, which we would get a portion of each development charge for each residential unit. And so there's a lot of units that are going to be going into this particular area. And so it would have a significant impact financially on that agreement that was done, going back, 20 years ago. So what they want to do is change the planning principles irrespective of what had been agreed to in that particular annexation agreement between the towns.
Yes, it's a very, right now, hotly contested issue, both with the property owner over there, Brad Smith of Aon, and his planning people. So anyway, I think I saw Deputy Mayor Clark's hand up. Bonnie, further question?
Yeah, yes, just through the mayor. So Greg, does that agreement not trump this if it went to, I'd call it an OMB. I know that is the incorrect name now, but certainly you put an agreement in place. You aren't even consulted. This is very, very poor partnershiping.
Yeah, we'd have to get, and this, I guess, it would be another conversation for maybe a subsequent meeting here of council. So we could have some, and we would probably go into close to get some legal advice on how to deal specifically with that annexation agreement. So that's, I guess, what I would comment in the public realm around that. And then, then there would be, as a part of that advice, as we put into the report, is one of the options that the council can have is certainly to have a conversation with the city and ask them to remove these particular or change these directions. Ultimately, it may require an appeal to their official plan to the local planning tribunal, right? So the old OMB. So there's a few pieces that have to be researched and put in place, but that sort of gives council a bit of a flavor of what these issues are and how egregious they are to ourselves.
If I may follow up, Mayor Taylor,
Okay.
to Councillor Power's point, does there need to be a motion with a little more teeth in it put forward to the city, or is that premature yet? And I'll look for your advice.
That's a tough question. I know we had to respond based on the plan. And I guess what I would advise council is we need to take a little bit of time and look at it from a legal perspective and then come back to the council. But I think that, if you wanted to add something to this particular motion or make another motion of council, speaking to the seriousness of this particular matter, I'd leave that up to Mr. Mayor and to the council.
Council and Greg, at this point in time, and this is really because of the time constraints that we were put under. We would have had more discussion on this, and we maybe would have had other comments to send in on behalf of council, but we didn't have the luxury of the time. So this is the comments that have already gone into the city. And they're discussing this perhaps as we speak. Their council meeting is tonight. That's why we had to get these comments into them before tonight. So staff did that. I don't know really if there's any point in adding anything because we wouldn't get it into them within the time frame. But as Greg has said, depending upon decisions that are made there tonight, will determine what actions or decisions we feel we may need to take in the future. And certainly if we do want to have that discussion, it will likely be enclosed and it will be with some legal advice. But I think right now, because of the timing, we've sent in our comments. We hope that they consider them. We'll wait to see what decisions are made, and then that will determine what actions that we take. I think that's the proper course right now. I will say, that I think that our township and our council, I think that the other townships, other councils and county council understand the need for a regional transportation plan. And quite often cities have these so-called ring roads that allow access around large urban centers. And I think that we all recognize that. And we all feel that's probably part, at least I feel it's probably part of the transportation network for this area well into the future. But saying that, there needs to be consultation with all of the affected townships in the county as we go through that process. And that has not happened yet. And some of the property that they have set aside from their 1998 official plan has now been well developed, and it not likely could be considered for an arterial transportation corridor. So I think the city needs to go back to the drawing board, start consulting more, find a better, a more practical route, and we can start thinking about that for so-called ring roads in the future. But the way they've gone about it now and the properties they've designated now are entirely inappropriate. And quite frankly, a couple of them are nothing short of ridiculous. So there's got to be some changes made. And I'm hoping that City Council is having that conversation tonight and realizing that. The Cold Springs secondary plan in the Cold Springs area, that's a different conversation. That has some serious implications to our township. We'll be watching very closely what decisions they make on that and making decisions accordingly. But for now, Council, these are our comments. We have submitted them, and we simply did that because of time constraints. We didn't have the opportunity to allow this to come to Council first. So this is really just to receive for information because they didn't know how else we could do it. Comments, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I will just make the motion that we receive it, and I guess the motion that's printed in our agenda, and I guess stay tuned. There will be more to come, which we will deal with at the time.
There may be, you could be right. So Deputy Mayor Clark has made the motion that we receive the report for information. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Howie. Questions on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you again, staff. Okay, finance 15.1, the quarterly treasurer's report. And I see Jocelyn on the screen. Go ahead, Jocelyn.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so the monthly or quarterly report. I have the Q3 quarterly department report as well as the Q3 investment report just for council's information. So I have noted, made a few notes of highlights that you
Jocelyn, there you are. You were muted there for a moment.
Okay, so the first area that I'd like to make note of is the building and planning. So building is currently in the Q3, 107% of budget, and planning is at 141% of budget. So both doing very well compared to the 2021 budget. Property or public property, the grounds maintenance account is currently sitting at 96% of the budget. This is due to the snow removal costs. The budget was set at 10,000, but the Q3 cost is actually 23,000, and we have yet to have our November, December. After speaking with Mike, we do have a few things that we're going to do next year besides adjusting the budget, but what the actual contract was taking care of to help in that area. So that shouldn't be an issue next year. Then roads department, the debris and litter pickup is currently sitting over budget, which was odd. So when I went to run a comparison looking at last year, it actually looks like it was a typing error when the original 2021 budget was done, and there was a digit missed. So next year it will be corrected, and that shouldn't be an issue. We are very comparable to last year and the year before, so there isn't an increase that council should be concerned at all. And my fourth point is just fire. Fire and incident charges are 45% of the budget. This is mainly due to a change in our ability, or CARA's ability, to obtain the MTO traffic reports for incidents that do not meet a certain threshold for accidents that happen on our local roads. So not any provincial roads, I guess. So basically, things have changed on how she gets those reports, or at a certain threshold, she no longer gets those reports, which has information that she needs to do the invoicing. So it's taking a bit longer than normal. So that is why our revenue seems lower than last year. And we're hoping that it won't affect things too badly. Is there any questions in regards to the Q3 report?
Thank you, Jocelyn. Members of the council, any questions on the information Jocelyn has provided? Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, through the mayor, certainly, Jocelyn, thank you for the bullet points and breaking them out. That's just excellent. I quite like that. And the one thing that we look at in this snow removal and this contract, I think when we do our budget process here, we need to be looking at it through a different lens and get true what we're getting and what the cost is, because each year it seems to me, I find it more unclear what the contract is and what it's all about. So that is my only comment, and Jocelyn's made the I guess part of my built what my concerns are. So I appreciate that. So just future for our budget deliberation on that. Thank you.
Great, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, through the deputy mayor, we've had a condition here the last two annual timeframes. One of them, going back 2 years ago, we waited too long to issue the actual, if council recalls, and we saw a spike in the cost of us going out just because of that. In this, when we reissued it last year, we fine-tuned it a bit, and we're going to fine-tune the contract again this year. So the contract works that says that we can that the contractor bids on this particular work, and then we have the option to look at a second year. So that's what we're looking at this year, and we want to fine-tune the contract around that. If council recalls, we had a lot of sort of wet and icy weather last year, and so a lot of our, when I was talking with Mike, a lot of our costs last year was because we had the frequency about how many times we had to send them out, just because there was icy and slippery conditions. And so we'll be adjusting those particular parameters with the service provider this year. And so I think we can bring it back into sort of a regular type of expenditure that we would be consistent to see from year to year.
Thank you. Any other questions to Jocelyn on the quarterly report? Go ahead, Councillor Powers.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. Again, really helpful. Thanks, Jocelyn. Good report as usual. Just curious, obviously the two that from your bullet points that stand out are to me anyway, are the building and planning, obviously very busy. Lots of people are building and doing changes to their houses and looking to expand in some way. I guess one of the things that stood out to me, certainly on the building line, so that's, what page is that on? I don't think there's a page number, but anyway, the building line is, we've got 107, so well over budget. We're going to be well over budget on the building permit revenue side, so lots of activity within there. And yet for some reason the wages I would expect to be in line with where we would be, but the wages are quite a bit lower on that same line, which would imply to me that we're not quite up to budget. And I suspect there's a reason for that. And I see Greg shaking his head, and it could be just in terms of the relationship that we have with our CBO and how that works, I don't know. But if you could maybe just speak to the difference between why we're over budget on our revenue, which means we have a lot more work, and we're under budget on our salary, which means maybe there's been less activity there.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, and I know Jocelyn will jump in here. I can speak to that. On the revenue side, we're starting to see the revenues kick in from Ambria and Burnham Meadows and Belmere. Okay, so that's where those permits are way up. On the expenditure side, we've actually reduced our costs. So our contract with our acting CBO is less than a full-time position. Okay, so he's not working the full amount of hours under this particular employment relationship. So, and I guess the third thing that I'd speak to, that when you're going out and having, getting into the Christmas season and having some, going out to some social gatherings now that we're going to be hopefully be free to go do that, is that what this really points to is that even though that our front door has been locked, we've been really doing, I think these folks have been doing a really great job in getting out there and making sure that applications for both building and planning are dealt with and dealt with in an expedient manner. So those would be my comments, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure, Jocelyn, whether
That Councilor Powers, where'd you go?
we're so happy he left.
There he is. Well,
Maybe he didn't like the answer.
yeah, Councilor, Nick, did that answer your question?
Sorry about that. I just my whole internet just dropped right off. So I got Burnham Meadows and the acting CBO part, and I think that covers what I was looking for. So yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions to Jocelyn? Jocelyn, was there anything else that you wanted to speak about with regards to the finance report here?
No, I think that's everything, unless council has any questions about the report in general.
And we've had a couple, and certainly I would echo council's comments, Jocelyn. I like how you bring to our attention the areas where you've noticed variances or discrepancies and offered explanations. I think that's a great way to help us follow it and to understand it.
I've had good
Okay, if there's no further questions, I just need a motion, please, to receive the quarterly report for information. Councillor Howie and Councillor Allen. All in favor? That is received. Thank you. Okay, council, moving down now to bylaws. We have two of them. Could I have a motion, please, that bylaws 2021-45 and 46 be read a first time? I'm seeing Councillor Allen and Councillor Howie. All in favor? Carried. Can I get a motion, please? Sorry, I'd like the clerk to review the bylaws.
Bylaw 2140.
Sorry, I see Councillor Powers. Councillor Powers, did you have your hand up? Okay, sorry, we'll go back. Heather, would you please review the bylaws?
Bylaw 2021-45 is your confirming bylaw for your meetings of October 4th and 18th. 2021-46 is a planning zoning bylaw amendment revision for Meervold, and this will repeal bylaw 2020-37. And actually, if you would like, Ken Scullion, the junior planner, can walk you through why this bylaw has come before you.
Okay, I think this is referring to the lapsed application that we dealt with earlier, right, Ken?
That is correct, Mayor.
Go ahead if you want to explain it to council, please.
Sure. So the purpose of this bylaw 2020-46 is to repeal and replace bylaw 2020-37. This bylaw was to address zoning deficiencies for lot area and lot frontage for consent application B30-21. The initial bylaw did not include the minimum lot frontage provision, of 75 meters that is required to attain the final approval for the severance. So bylaw 2021-46 has included the minimum lot frontage of 75 meters, which will satisfy the zoning condition of consent for final approval.
All right. Any questions to staff on this particular bylaw? And if there's no questions, could I get a motion, please, that bylaws 2021-45 and 46 be read a second and third time, signed, sealed, and the corporate seal attached? Deputy Mayor, you willing to make that motion? And Councillor Powers is seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, moving down now to correspondence. I asked for this to be added to the correspondence. You can see it was an email that was sent to me. As for a bit of background here, there is a small, we'll call it a satellite post office in the hamlet of Fraserville. And apparently the individual who has run this little satellite office for quite some time is retiring. Canada Post wants to just pull the plug and remove the post office. The gas station, coffee shop / convenience store that's operating in Fraserville is under new ownership. It's being renovated. And the new owner is willing to relocate the post office to his new store, newly renovated store, if Canada Post will allow that to happen. He's hoping that our township, our council, will show some support for that particular idea. And as we know, it's frightening about how many rural Ontario is under siege. Our post offices are being closed, our schools are being closed, our services are being closed. They're all being relocated to large urban centers. And this is something I think that's very important to not just the residents of Fraserville, but the all South Monaghan ward. So I'm hoping that council will show some support for it, and I'm looking for comments and ideas. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Just to be clear, the satellite post office that's being closed is in Bailaborough or Fraserville. It's in Fraserville, right? And so therefore I'm in full support of this. As you say, Mayor Taylor, this is concerning, because unless we have our services out here, it just isolates people even more.
Comments further, Councillor Powers?
Just a quick question. This is not related to mailboxes, rural mailboxes, correct? This is just a Canada Post if I wanted to mail something out or receive a large package potentially. Although generally a lot of them are coming to people's houses now versus Canada. I can't remember the last time I went to a Canada Post office, but to receive a package. So I'm still in favor of it. I'm not sure that it's as critical as it used to be maybe 20 years ago, but I still am in favor of, if the community would like to have it, then I think it's important that they have it.
It's I've got Councillor Allen, and then we'll go back to Deputy Mayor Clark. The current post office sits exactly right beside the proposed new location. It's just a few feet apart, and it's been there for quite some time. Councillor Allen, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Taylor. And I too just would like to put forward my support for the concept of moving the post office from Fraserville, the current location, into the store and gas station stuff. It's seemingly similar to what I've seen in other locations. Does that provide post office box, or would it just be a pickup? It's just pickup box or pickup location, sorry.
It's drop off and pick up. There's no post office boxes inside this particular spot. Now, that doesn't mean that couldn't be part of the newly renovated one if that was the wishes.
Right.
But right, it's just a small satellite office, and it's been there for a long time, and it's served the community well. And I know the residents there will be sorry to see it leave if indeed it does. Back to Deputy Mayor Clark. Second comment, Bonnie.
Yes, just a comment on the fact it's so close to the existing one, and the service and what people are used to will be maintained. But the other thing about these post offices as well is the fact that you can do registered letters, and a lot of small businesses still do that. And that is an inconvenience if you have to go to Peterborough in order to do a registered, I realize that Amazon and that the packages certainly are being depleted, which the post office, has been the sole enterprise on those. But I think it services our small businesses as well, and we can't lose sight of that.
Well, you're right. Councillor Howie. Can you have
Yeah,
your
I'm in
hand up?
favor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Taylor. Yeah, I'm in favor, the same thing. If we say no, we'll never get another one back. But if we ask for it now just to be moved, hopefully it can stay. And like I say, it'll support the business. Out in the areas where we are, they need as much revenue as they can get just to support themselves. So I'm in favor as well.
So if there's no other comments, what I'm going to suggest, council, if you would consider it, is a motion from this council recognizing the importance of small rural post offices in general, but in particular to the hamlet of Fraserville and the ward of South Monaghan. And we fully support Mr. Let me just get his name here for you. Well, we fully support Mr. Shekar's attempt to relocate the satellite post office to his newly renovated store. I think a motion, something to that effect, unless you've got some other wording, Deputy Mayor, go ahead. Muted, Bonnie.
Sorry, I will make the motion, but do we need a copy sent to Canada Post? Like, where is this? I'd like to know exactly, a copy to him, of course, to Shander Shekar, but also Canada Post. I'm wondering if it goes to our, MP as well.
I think that's a good idea. I think to our MP is a good idea. Bonnie, Mr. Shekar is in the process of providing some information to Canada Post to support the application, and he would appreciate some sort of support from the township. So a copy of our motion can go to him, and then that will find its way certainly to Canada Post, because that's where he'd like it to end up. I think our MP is a good idea. I think we certainly should include MP Lawrence on this. And perhaps we may even contact him to make sure he's watching out for it.
He may send a letter of support as well.
Yes, yeah, we can request that. Yes, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So I think Deputy Mayor has made the motion that we offer a letter of support to Mr. Shekar in this endeavor, and Councillor Howie has seconded it. Any further discussion on it? Call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Information, there's two pieces of information for you, three pieces of information for you tonight. Is there anyone that council would like to pull out and discuss? If not, then I just need a motion to receive the information package. Councillor Howie and Councillor Powers. All in favor? That is received. Thank you. I don't have anything for other matters. We do have our Remembrance Day service coming up. Oh, Greg, I'm sorry, Greg does. Yes, sorry, Greg. Greg's got something he wants to discuss.
No. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We are rapidly trotting towards the 2022 budget process. So what we'd like to be able to do is put forward some proposed dates for us to look at and engage council in the process. So typically we have 2 or 3 meetings in our process. We usually have a kickoff meeting at a regular council meeting. So we will be looking to have that kickoff meeting as a part of the regular council meeting on the 22nd of November, which would be our next meeting of council. We'd like to propose potentially that we would have a budget meeting on the 29th of November and potentially one for the 6th of December. And then that way it would give us the meetings, and we would be looking to bring forward to council for adoption the 2022 budget for the 13th of December, for the December meeting. So that's what we're looking. We may not need all those meetings, but again, typically we do a kickoff. The first meeting is typically more of a discussion about the operating budget. The second meeting, we deal with capital, and then any other and the water rates and those sort of type of things, and then bringing forward something for approval on the 13th of December.
So Greg, this is a heads up to council to see if they can make themselves available for two special budget meetings, November 29th and December 6th, correct?
Yeah.
And what time of day would you be considering starting these two meetings?
We could meet at any time. Typically, we have met at 4 o'clock or that sort of type of thing. If we have to meet a little early or a little later, or if people want to meet during the day. I know it's sometimes difficult with people's work schedule, so we will be open. We just wanted to get the dates and stuff.
And one further question. I'm hoping that by then these can be in-person budget meetings in the council chambers. Have any reason to believe that it wouldn't be?
We can make an attempt to do that. We have to do some, so of course, depending on what happens on the COVID front, but we have to do some screening work on the horseshoe. So we will try to get it done so we can meet in person.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, go ahead, Bonnie.
Yes, through the mayor, I am going to be away for a couple of those dates, but would be able to attend by Zoom. Could it be a hybrid that I could, if it is in person, that I could still be able to attend by Zoom?
Well, or I mean, if council and staff would rather an electronic meeting, I'm fine with that. What's the pleasure of council? How would you prefer to deal with this? And I know that you haven't heard of it until tonight, so I hate to bomb you with this news, but we just felt it was important to give you as much advance notice as we could if special meetings are going to be requested.
If I could make a comment.
Sure.
Mayor. So I guess part of it is that if it's really difficult for us to do a hybrid type of event based on the current technology that we have. And so, using Zoom. So either we're going to do in person, or if all council members couldn't attend, we would then recommend that we would do it electronically. We would do it by Zoom.
Okay, but I just want to see if there's anybody else got any comments. Any preference? Councilor Powers, go ahead. Councilor Allen next.
I don't have any preference. If the deputy mayor can only make it virtually, I'm fine with just doing it as a virtual meeting. That's fine. I don't have any issue.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Councilor Allen.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Taylor. Greg, maybe I missed it when you were speaking. Did you have a time that you were proposing for those dates?
The time was, I think we were just talking about the dates, and then we were talking about whether it was in person, and then what the time was going to be was sort of a final factor, I believe, Mr. Mayor.
I think, Greg, you were proposing about a 4 o'clock start time. Is that what you said?
If we could, that would be really great.
So about a 4 o'clock proposed start time. So go ahead, Bonnie, you had something further?
Yeah, I am just going out actually to Agribition. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary, so I can't attend in person at all. So I appreciate Councillor Powers. I would like to be able to attend this. It's a very important thing. I think one of the most important that council deals with. So if that is possible.
So Bonnie, is that for both meetings, the 29th?
Yes.
26th? Okay. So
no, I'm sorry, the 22nd and the 29th. I am home the 6th.
Okay. Oh, the 22nd is a regular council meeting. Yeah, that's fine. And so I guess council, what we should do is plan on continuing an electronic meeting for our next council meeting, the 22nd, and our first budget meeting on November 29th. Greg, do you want us to try to make the decision now about how we meet on the 6th and and the 13th, or would you rather wait to see what kind of alterations you can make to the council chambers?
I would, respectfully request that if we're going to do it, let's do it Zoom, and then maybe look at returning to council chambers in the new year.
How is council in favor of that? Let's just take a show of hands. Show of hands if you're okay with meeting virtually until 2022, when hopefully we can get back to the council chambers. Okay, all right. So that's fine. So let's figure on, certainly our next council meeting will be virtually, and then the two budget meetings after that, starting at proposed 4 o'clock. Is council okay with that? The budget meetings. Bonnie?
Yes, I'm okay at 4. I thought we were doing budget on the 22nd as well as our regular meeting.
I think it's just part of our council meeting.
Yeah.
So that will be a 6 o'clock start, correct, staff?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 6 o'clock on the 22nd and 4 then on the 29th.
Correct, and 4 o'clock on the 6th. The 22nd is a regular budget meeting, which will contain a portion of that will be related to budget. On the 22nd.
The 22nd, Mayor Taylor.
Correct. So Heather, if you could perhaps send council either meeting requests or information confirming these times and dates right away, we can get it in our calendars and make sure that everybody understands when we're going to meet and how we're going to meet and all that sort of thing. I think that would be helpful. Greg, go ahead.
Just a final point. So the December 13th meeting would be the regular council meeting, and that would start at 6 o'clock.
Correct, right. And that, hopefully, the plan is when we'll have a budget that's ready for approval. Hopefully. Okay. So if council understands all that, and we have nothing else under other matters, there's nothing for closed session. Deputy Mayor, you're one step ahead of me on the motion.
I was going to make a motion to adjourn, Mayor Taylor.
Sounds good to me. And I got a seconder in Councillor Allen. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much, staff.